The European Union earned 3,435,200 euros from rejected Schengen Visa applications from Nigeria in 2023, according to Schengen Visa statistics. So, Nigerians, you can see that in as much as it's very bad that you people did not meet the requirements, you were denied visa, but your hard-earned money is still flowing into their economies in Europe here to the amount of 3,435,200 million euros just for 2023. And this year is even going to increase because the visa fees has been increased. So if care is not taken, this 3,435,200 million euros they made out of Nigeria alone from failed visas might even double itself in year 2024. Because the more the hardship is biting very hard in Nigeria, the more anybody who can afford it is looking for ways to live Nigeria in search of better life for them and their families. Globally, the EU government racked in 130 million from rejected Schengen visa applications, with African and Asian countries shouldering 90% of the cost, according to the reports from the EUobserver.com. The report also indicates that African countries particularly are disproportionately impacted with rejection rates as high as 40 to 50% for Ghana, Senegal, and Nigeria. Notably, the figures do not account for the costs incurred from being unable to travel for businesses, leisure, or expenses for legal advice and private agencies involved processing visa applications. So this money they made did not even include people's traveling expenses, business or leisure expenses, or people who are paying lawyers to file against rejection and they still get rejected, or people who are paying private agencies to run these applications for them. This money alone is just for visa fee you paid alone. Visa inequality. Martha Forrester, founder of Lago Collective and senior visiting fellow at the Overseas Development Institute, said visa inequality has very tangible consequences and the worst poorest pay the price. So you see, visa inequality has tangible consequences, and it is the poor countries. And if you check, it is in Africa and in Asia that you will find the most poorest countries. And that's why you see that African countries and Asia countries are the one that are paying this money that is flowing into their economies. And yes, some of their citizens here who are ignorant, myopic, we still have the guts to see Africans or Asians here and be asking them, what are you doing here? Can't you go back to your country? Why these countries, their embassies are making millions. Their multinational companies in Africa or Asia countries are making millions every day. You can't think of the cost of rejected visas as reverse remittance. So the money they make out of rejected visa, they call it reverse remittance. Money flowing from poor to rich countries. We never hear about these cuts when discussing aid or migration. It is time to change that, she added. So the woman from this Overseas Development Institute said that when they are talking about aid to these third world countries or migration, they never talk about these monies that are flowing from poor countries to the rich countries. And she said it is time to change that. The EU estimates that about half of all irregular migrants within the bloc's 27 member states result from visa overstays. Last year, over 38,000 non-EU citizens were sent back to their countries. So, last year, the EU sent or deported 83,000 non-EU citizens, people, back to their countries. A return rate of 19% according to the EU Commission. Over the past year, the EU has begun to use visa restrictions as a political tool. So you see, The EU over the years now are using visa restrictions as a political tool, employing Article 25A of its 2019 Visa Code, a provision that allows visa restrictions for countries with low rates of migrant returns. For instance, in April, the EU Council agreed to impose visa sanctions on Ethiopia, including a ban on obtaining visas for multiple entries into the EU countries, while diplomatic and service passport holders will no longer be exempted from visa fees. EU ministers extended the processing time for visa from 15 days to 45 days, citing Ethiopia's lack of cooperating in returning its nationals staying illegally in the EU countries. So you see, visa restrictions is even now a political tool. Conversely, in April, EU ministers lifted visa restrictions on the Gambia imposed in 2021. So in 2021, the EU even imposed visa restrictions on Gambia people, Gambia as a nation, and now they have lifted it, which means that the people from Gambia can now apply for EU visas. But if you are applying from Gambia, because you are now allowed to apply, please make sure that you are meeting the requirement. So you will not use your hard-earned money and pay them. At the end of the day, you are enriching their country, and the services in which you are paying that money for, you won't get it because you did not meet the requirements. After its migrant return rate increased from 14% in 2022 to 37% in 2023. So the Gambia migrant return increased from 14% in 2022 to 37% in 2023, which is about 23%. That's a lot. Visa rejections in its numbers. The rejection of visas is a phenomenon which has been termed reverse remittance according to an analysis shared with EU observers. The fees are non-refundable. So if you're applying for visa, you don't know now when you're watching this video, make sure you meet the requirement, because as soon as you pay the visa fee, if your visa get rejected because you did not meet the requirement, your money will not be refunded back. It is gone. These fees are non-refundable regardless of the application outcome. The largest number of visa applications to the EU come from Morocco and Algeria. The overall data also indicates that rejection rates for short-term visitor visa to Europe and UK are higher for applicants from low and middle income countries. So the applicants that are coming for these visas in the EU and the UK are mostly from low or middle income countries, that is to say third world countries, which Africa and Asia is inside this third world country in most cases. The cost of Schengen visa rejections in 2023 reached 130 million, which is an increase from 105 million in 2022. The rejection rate is expected to rise in 2024 as an EU visa application fee for adults will increase from 80 to 90 euro on 11th of June, following recent decision by the EU Commission. Meanwhile, the UK raised 44 million pounds, which is equivalent to 50 million euros from rejected visa fees. So you see, in 2023, the EU made 130 million euros from rejected visa applications, or called reverse remittance, from these third world countries or low or middle income countries, which it's equally referred to as third world countries, where African countries, some African countries and some Asian countries find themselves in. And UK or itself raised 44 million pounds, which is equivalent to 150 million euros from rejected visa fees. So people from these third world countries, advise yourself so that you will not keep taking the little, or you are working so hard to keep enriching these rich countries by paying for visa at the end of the day because of your own mistake or shortcomings, you don't get the visa and you don't get your money back.